Yellow Brick Games is an independent studio founded by the former creative director of the early Dragon Age games and former developers from Ubisoft Quebec, most famous for their late 2010s Assassin's Creed mainline titles. With fewer than 80 employees, and a lot of help according to the credits, Eternal Strands is their first release. At light glance seems to review a narrative-driven game that relies on existing elements of other successful third-person action-adventure games, including amorphous blob gameplay design and climbable environments and giants. A mere copycat derivative, perhaps? Not quite. As with many things, the specialty is in the details. It does not take long to quickly identify what the core gameplay design was influenced by. While many games can be accused of featuring the same core elements with very little variation of personality, Eternal Strands is very clear about the inspirations woven into its mantle. Right from the start, it is The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. Walls are climbable, the somewhat destructible environment responds to extreme heat and cold, big objects are throwable, magic abilities can clear or create the path forward. Climbing and defeating giant enemies reveals influences from Dragon's Dogma, Monster Hunter, and maybe a little of Shadow of the Colossus. Past the influences, a lot of the core design is the standard current-day core action-adventure template. With a good amount of Zelda and beast hunting flavoring, it invites experimentation, especially when paired with essential magical abilities. Whether fighting enemies large or small, there are a number of different ways that can be chosen to defeat them, though with the big beasts, harvesting for strands has certain requirements, as opposed to brute force killing. The overall combat experience is generally good. The usual light, heavy attack, parries, bows, and the like function adequately. The variety of fire, ice, and kinetic magic abilities are fun to use and experiment against enemies and some environmental elements. The enemy variety can feel a bit on the lacking side. By late game, they will have been encountered enough where you will have found your preferred way of defeating them. My preferred method was to set everything on fire with a molten buddy on the side. One cheese tactic will not win them all though, especially with the large bosses. Even when they are solved, the decent variation between each one makes for some exciting experiences, close calls, and fantastic heroics. Eternal Strands is an action-adventure game, and did not complicate its design with leveling stats, skill trees, and enchantments. More damage and armor is gained through gear. It is the usual push-button crafting and upgrading, but the added flavor here is materials used in the process affect the armor, resistances, and weight. An added touch is they change the color hue of the related material on the armor. Schematics found during exploration add crafting options for elemental variations of weapons, which is nice to have to suit your favorite way of handling things. You can level up magical abilities and upgrade stations in camp to allow further upgrades and easier adventuring perks. The rest of the leveling up feel is getting better at combat and defeating enemies. The gear does help though, and getting better gear means traveling into the world to get materials. Exploration of the Enclave traverses through several medium-sized areas. The maps are well sized given that the Enclave is seemingly deserted except for aggressive threats. Traveling through areas for the first time, maintain a decent sense of danger as there is a limited number of potions that can be carried and a limited number that can be found on the map. Around any corner could be a group of enemies or a chest of rare materials, and getting spotted by a giant at an unfortunate time can be a fun experience. Weather has a considerable effect as droughts, cold snaps, and toxic miasma fog can change things up getting around and fighting enemies. Think of it as Breath of the Wild with a lot more corridors and a little Dragon's Dogma risk. Taking fatal damage means getting rescued and only being able to salvage a few items. The map sizes never overwhelm, but the compromise is the novelty of exploration wears off more quickly, as it takes less time to learn your way around and where all the health potions are. The tasks assigned through these areas are standard fare: find things, collect things, and investigate things. The good news is that every quest at these areas serves to either help empower magical abilities, advance the story, or aid companions of the Weaver Band. The story centers within the mythical, magical-powered Enclave that is walled off from the rest of the world. A generation ago, the Enclave's decision to sever connections to the outside world caused a chaotic aftermath, causing magic-wielding weavers to be tolerated at best and reviled at worst. This particular Weaver Band is headed by the youthful and talented Bryn. After finding a lucky way into the Enclave, and the band's leader getting injured, Bryn becomes the acting point to explore the Enclave for explanations on why the veil was raised. More worryingly, the Enclave appears completely abandoned for decades, with crumbling infrastructure, toxic fog, dramatic weather swings, and aggressive enemies wandering about. As clues and evidence are pieced together to determine the cause of the Great Enclave's fall, various members of the band will also need Bryn's help for both their work and for personal assistance. The narrative has many of the standard pieces of a leader supporting their companions, completing a variety of tasks, and providing emotional and life guidance. There are several quests to help resolve member struggles and curiosities, and many conversations well paced throughout the 30-hour journey to gradually learn about them. The Weaver Band is most certainly a group of well-mannered professionals who are easy to like. Experts at what they do, they make for some of the most productive colleagues one can ask for. Backing all characters of Eternal Strands is excellent voice acting performances, joined by equally excellent writing. With this band of experts, it is the perfect antidote to excessive bravado, exhausting quips, and flashy flamboyance. However, some may find the tone to be too muted. None of the characters have cringy personalities, but they all seem to be different flavors stemming from the same well-mannered pool. The most intense emotion registered is an anxiety attack by the quartermaster. While this type of narrative is mostly remembered for the companions and supporting cast, the main plot itself is decent and very competent. While the plot points do not feature any wild twists or shocking revelations, it accomplishes its mission with no glaring flaws. The main and side quests are structured and paced in a way where one does not put a hard stop on the other. There is no unpleasant pressure to do everything, but there is a gentle sense that they help the journey if completed. Helping things further is there are only main, companion, and giant beast quests. No mundane gig work for a random dirt farmer will be found here. A curious observation is that through the many conversations, responses, and help Bryn can provide, there is no indication if these decisions affect the outcome of the story. If decisions and quests do have an impact, the bright side is it felt very integrated and the flow of the narrative continued smoothly. The downside is I can't tell if there are different outcomes. Most of the conversations are through the use of 2D art. This saves a lot from having to do conversation animations, but for the few in-game cutscenes that do exist, the body and facial animations have an underdeveloped appearance. Surface environments, on the other hand, have detailing that matches the steady narrative. Take some time to look around and into those distant views, and there is a sense of uplifting awe, wonder, and curiosity. It would be the exact response Bryn would have seeing the vibrant lands of the Enclave for the first time. It is somewhat easy to dismiss Eternal Strands because a quick glance can lead to the assumption of a derivative, normal, action-adventure game with copied popular concepts. In today's competitive game industry, many games try very hard to implement lots of marketable flash, gimmicks, complex systems, size, and providing a little of everything in an effort to stand out. If some games are too ambitious by providing a supersized buffet in an attempt to attract everybody, Yellow Brick Games embarked on a safer and calculated route of a project that is within the reach of their skills, talents, interests, and resources. The game's sound gameplay fundamentals and mostly high-quality feel match games more than double the size and scope. It is not ashamed of, nor does it hide, its inspirations. Some may find the game to be somewhat too safe and muted. Innovation and hype are not the main words that immediately come to mind. I would instead describe the game as focused and aspirational. It is not the most original thing, but it has clear goals. The end result is an honest, uplifting adventure, backed by a relaxing soundtrack and narrative. Well done, Yellow Brick Games. I wish you future success. Hi viewers, if you like this review, do give this video a like and subscribe to Super Gamekraft. By subscribing, you won't miss out on our upcoming content, including more video reviews, our first ever video essay, and clips of our weekly Super Gamecast podcast. Thanks for watching.